All right, everybody, we are going to get started. Welcome to the COVID-19 and 2020 Wellness Check. As I mentioned in my email, the state of New Hampshire is now mandating that employers have every employee do a wellness check prior to arriving to work or when arriving to work. And we are choosing to do it prior so that people aren't driving all the way in just to be sent home. It just doesn't make sense. So we looked at many different ways that we could do this. Obviously, having someone standing at an entrance of each yard for like an hour waiting for different waves of employees to come in just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to have someone sitting in the office every time someone walked in, going and scanning someone's forehead. Just the logistics alone of doing that would have just taken up way too much time. So instead, we looked at different ways that we could do this. I was looking at an app that would have done it, that would have cost the company a lot of money. And literally the day I signed the app, Whip Around came out with something in their system that does exactly what we need it to do. It's adaptable to the questions that we need to ask based on New Hampshire's regulations. So it's going to work out perfectly. Some of you, Dustin and I did some testing the other day. You may have logged in one morning and saw this there and was like, what is going on? We apologize for that. We forgot to delete it at the end of doing some test runs. The new one is set up and I'm going to go over that. Dustin is also on the call in case I misspeak. I do not know Whip Around as well as he does. So he may jump in here or there just to help me out a little bit. So we'll get started. Okay. So when you log into the Whip Around app, before you do anything, you want to check or click on the COVID-19 wellness check button that comes up. Now, this may look a little different on Android versus iPhone. I have an iPhone, so mine is like a wheel that I can spin. It's at the top of the wheel. I'm not sure how it looks on Samsung, but the wording should be the same. So once you click on that, you're then going to click next at the bottom of the screen. This is going to take you to just a quick card that says COVID wellness card. You're going to click that and click start. For some of you who haven't used the Whip Around app before, it may ask you to enable location access. You do not need to do that. It will end up being a background thing that's going to drain your battery or just use resources in your phone that you don't need it using. So just click not now, and you may have to do that every time you log into the app, but it's not a big deal. Just click not now and move on. You're then going to come to the first question. What you're going to notice here is that the top question will always be in white, and then the next questions are going to be grayed out. You cannot skip questions. You can't say, well, I don't want to answer that. You have to click check or pass, and then it will go to the next question. So I want to explain for each question what check and what pass means, because the questions are kind of set up like yes, no. And we're not able to change those words because Whip Around set this up as a vehicle inspection. So it's a little different. So the first question is press pass if you are not exhibiting any of the following symptoms of COVID. Fever of 100.4 or higher. What does that mean? That means that we need you to take your temperature every morning. If you don't have a thermometer, go to Walmart, go to Rite Aid, go to Walgreens, go somewhere, get the $5 ones that you can use at home and take your temperature. You are not experiencing any respiratory symptoms such as runny nose, we wrote noise, runny nose, nasal congestion, sore throat, cough, or shortness of breath. Muscle aches, chills, and severe fatigue, nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea, changes in taste and smell. If you are not exhibiting any of those symptoms, you're going to check pass. If you are exhibiting any of those symptoms, you're going to select check. And that basically means that we're going to come back and it's going to ask you a question. And I'll go over that on the next one, because on the next one, I clicked check so we can see what that looks like. And I'm going to answer questions at the end. So please feel free to type your answers into this, or your questions rather. So the next question, press pass if you have not traveled in the past 14 days outside of New England. New England is defined by New Hampshire as New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So if you have not traveled outside of the New England area within 14 days, you're going to click pass. If you have traveled outside of the New England area in the past 14 days, you're going to click check. On this particular example, I am clicking check because I hypothetically went to Kansas over the long weekend. This is what you will see if you click check. It's going to ask you to reconfirm that you meant to hit that button. So if you meant to hit check, you're going to press the X to confirm that you did travel outside of New England or whatever the question is. If you hit it by accident because you forgot which one to hit, you would then press the check mark to continue on to the next question. As I mentioned, I went to Kansas. So I am going to press the X here. It is going to take me to a new screen where it's asking basically, where did you go? What are your symptoms if it was a symptom? It also says take a photo. You do not need to take a photo to proceed here. You just type in a response. So I typed in went to Kansas over the weekend, and then I'm going to click OK. It will then take you to the next question. You will see at the top of your screen in the progress bar, there's now a red block that just lets you know that on one of the questions, you clicked check and you confirmed that you meant to click check. And that's how we're going to get notified once you get to the end of this and submit it. So the next question is, I am practicing the 5. Wash your hands regularly for 20 seconds with soap and water or alcohol-based hand rub. Avoiding close contact 1 meter or 3 feet with other people. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Stay home and self-isolate from others in the household if you feel unwell. Cover your nose and mouth with a disposable tissue or flexed elbow when you cough or sneeze. So if you are not doing those things, you need to click the check box. If you have been doing those things, you're going to click the pass box. I apologize if this seems redundant, but some people may not understand, and I just want to make it very clear what these mean. So we're going to click the pass, and then our final question, oh, nope, this is number 4. COVID-19 contact. Press pass if you have not been in contact with someone who is suspected or confirmed to have had COVID-19 in the past 14 days. So by clicking check, it means you have been in contact with someone suspected or confirmed to have had COVID-19 in the past 14 days. If you click pass, it means that you have not had contact with someone suspected or confirmed to have had COVID in the past 14 days. So here we're going to click pass. Next, it's going to ask you to tap the center of the box to go to the signature screen. This is not where you sign. I kept trying to sign here and it confused me, which is okay. I got through it. So we're going to tap here, and then we can sign with our fingers. It's going to come up as a blank screen. When you get to that blank screen, that's when you use your finger to sign, and then you click enter. Once you've done all that, you come to the submit screen. It lets you know that you're on the COVID wellness card and what date it is, the time that you completed it, and how long it took you to complete it. It then tells you how many faults or how many check marks you checked, and then you're going to click submit. From there, this is going to go to Dustin. If anyone has failed any of those, Dustin is going to alert the correct person. We are then going to call the person who failed and say, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you clicked check on the symptoms because you have a runny nose. When you click that, Dustin's going to call, or someone's going to call and say, I see that you failed or that you had one fault in your test. Can you explain to me what your runny nose is about? Well, I have seasonal allergies. I haven't been around with anyone with COVID. I've been maintaining my distance. I'm wearing my mask. I'm doing all the right things. We will then make a decision on whether or not you can come to work. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a little bit. So one question I know is going to come up is this information confidential? It absolutely is. Anyone who's created these types of apps or programs within their own software understand that all the information is HIPAA protected. So there are very few people that have access to this information. Those people are Dustin, myself, Andrew, and Mark. We are all admins within the system and have access to see who has answered the questions and if there's anyone who we need to contact. At the end of, hold on, I got a message. At the beginning of each day when I come in, I am going to be logging into WhipAround, pulling up the wellness check card report and seeing who completed it and who didn't based on who is on the schedule. So if I'm going to use Sarah Cook as an example, because she just sent a message and her name's just in my brain. So if I get in and I see Sarah Cook's on the schedule, but I've noticed that she hasn't done her wellness card, it's 7:30 in the morning and she was doing it 6:30. I'm calling Sarah and saying, Sarah, you make sure that you get that wellness card filled in. And are you having any of the symptoms or whatever? And I'm going to go through that portion of it so that there's a double check on making sure that people are doing this. This is going to be based on an honor system. So we are asking all of you to please be truthful in your answers. Just because you check something doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to come to work. We just need to ask you additional questions to verify why you didn't check something. So please be aware of that. If you have all passes, so at the bottom of that submit screen, there's no faults. You can come to work and have no worries. If one or more checks are on there, you're to stay home and notify your crew leader that you're waiting for a call from someone because you did have a check. And crew leaders, obviously this is confidential. You can't just be like, oh, so-and-so has a check or a fault in their COVID-19 wellness, so we got to wait to see if they're going to show up. That's not how it works. Just let them know they can't be in right now and they may come in later or whatever. Don't tell anybody. So again, Dustin is going to be notified. He's going to contact the appropriate person, including potentially me. And then I will reach out or someone will reach out to you with additional questions, determine if you need to stay home until symptoms have subsided for 3 full days without medication or until you receive a test result if you need a COVID test. I cannot determine, and no one in this company can determine if you need a COVID test. However, we may recommend that you contact your provider or your PCP to ask them, and they can guide you on whether or not they feel you need a COVID test or not. So I'm going to go to questions before I move on to the next screen. So Sarah had sent, are employees that are working from home have to do this questionnaire? No, that's a great question, Sarah. If you are working home for the day, you do not have to do that. It's only if you're coming into the office, if you're going to be out on a job site with other employees. So that's when you want to make sure that you're doing that. Good question, Sarah. Thank you. Curtis, so if I have a runny nose from allergies every morning, do I have to wait for a phone call before I leave from work? We can determine that on a case-by-case basis. The first time it happens, yes, you do need to wait at home, and we will determine if your allergies are that bad. I do recommend if you have allergies that are seasonal that you talk to your doctor about it and maybe take Claritin or Zyrtec every day to help with that. or maybe there's a prescription that you're supposed to be taking that will help reduce those symptoms so you don't have to check it every morning. Kevin Johnson, how early are you going to call if you check something at 4 a.m.? So if you're getting, I'd have to ask you a little bit more about that, Kevin. Like, let me see if I can't find you on the list and unmute you, because I do have a question on that. Let me see. Kevin, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, are you actually leaving to come to work at 4 a.m. or are you getting up at 4 a.m.?
Getting up at 4 a.m.
Okay. So you don't want to do it when you wake up. You want to do it just before you're about to walk out the door, or shortly after. I guess it depends. If you are having symptoms the moment you wake up, then yes, fill it out and we'll get to you as soon as we can. If you aren't having symptoms or any of those, you know what the questions are. So if all you know you're going to be checking pass on everything, you can do it at 4 a.m. or you can wait until you leave. But that's really tough because I don't know anyone who's going to contact you at 4 a.m. unless Andrew's up at 3 a.m. most days, and he may be able to look at that report and do that. So that's a tough one. But yes, if, like, let's say that you have a really bad cough, you cannot leave until someone calls you. So you're just going to have to wait at home until that time. I wish I had a better answer for you. Maybe someone else can chime in. So, but I'll let you know. That's a good question. I appreciate that because I know some of you do get up super early. Brian asks, is someone going to be available to react to alerts? So that's basically comes in at 5:30 or 6. We can look at that, you know, because obviously some of you are going to be filling it out that super early. So we can add someone else that we know is going to be awake at that time to the alerts that can make those phone calls. I get up at 5 a.m. so I can be put on for that. As far as 4:30 or 4, I am not up at that time. So we would need to find someone who can do that, because I do want to get to people as soon as possible so that they can get in as quickly as possible if they don't have to stay home. So, and one of the other things is, please understand that we have to work the kinks out of the system. This is all new to everybody. Mike Normandan, what's the process if symptoms develop during the day? That is a fantastic question, Mike. So thermometers will be in on Tuesday. We hope to have completely distributed by Wednesday. Every truck will have, not every truck, I take that back. All account managers, PMs will have thermometers with them. And I believe we even said some crew leaders. If someone starts to develop symptoms during the day, we want to first assess their symptoms. We want to ask some additional questions. You can contact me if you need help. And then we're going to take their temperature. If anyone is over 100.4 in the middle of the day, they need to go home. People will be sent home if any symptoms start to arise during the day. That does happen. There are times we get to work and, 1 o'clock hits and we're starting to not feel good. We're starting to get a sore throat. We're starting to feel fatigued. And if that happens, it's time to go home. So again, this is an honor system. We really need everyone to be honest about how they're feeling each day and not coming into work if they're not feeling well. Amy, what about in the winter when people are shoveling at 1 a.m.? That's a very good question. We haven't worked through that yet, Amy. So I will put that aside until we've had a chance to take that into consideration. Very good question. I appreciate that. Keegan, making up for lost time due to these new procedures in place. So with quarantine, if you're being asked to quarantine based on symptoms and you're getting a test done there is a government protection for you that pays 67% of your pay up to 80 hours of lost time due to COVID regulations by the state or by the federal government. So this will cover that lost time up to 67% of your pay. If you get beyond that 80 hours and you have vacation time, you can then use that on top of it. Cole has a good question. If you've traveled but got tested and came back negative, along with not having the symptoms for over a week, do you still have to wait for the call every day? Yes. So I'm going to get to that in the next slide. So we're going to go to that next slide. I have answered. I need to click answered on some of these so I remember what I've answered and what I haven't. So we're going to go to the next slide, and then I will come back and answer anything after Cole's. Let's see. Okay. So temperature checks are also going to be mandatory upon arrival in the yards, the office, and on job sites. So even though you've taken it at home, we need to verify as well when you arrive that your temperature isn't 100.4 or higher. I don't know where they got that number, but that's what they're saying. So they being the CDC. At the office, we'll be doing self-checks upon coming in the door. There will be stations set up at each door. So at Village West, it will be at the front door and at the back door, and in 101, it will be in the back door. So cannot come in through the front door. These stations will have a thermometer. We're gonna have gloves readily available and hopefully hand sanitizer as well. You would just point it at your head and make sure that your temperature isn't 100.4 or higher before you begin work. In the field, crew leaders will have thermometers. The crew leader will want to take their own temperature when they arrive. And then as employees come in, you'd be taking their temperatures. Crew leaders, when you're taking employees' temperatures, you must be wearing a mask and gloves. And the person getting the temperature taken must also be wearing a mask. We are getting, our thermometers are no touch, so you don't have to put them to anyone's forehead. I do believe that you have to be in a certain distance of the forehead though. The other concern that we're gonna have is coming into winter, the outside temperature fluctuations. So we're gonna have to look into how we're gonna handle that. We may have to find a way that you can do it inside somehow. We're really not sure. Again, we have to work through this for the winter months. Again, temperature of 100.4 or over, you will be sent home. And if you're exhibiting any signs of COVID, you will be sent home as well. Okay. So I will answer some additional questions. So I was down at Cole. So Mike Normandin, is LRGH set up to do rapid testing for us? So we don't have to wait the week. So rapid testing. And so one of the things, and I do believe it's in this, I'm not 100% sure if I put it in here. Rapid tests, you cannot test out of a 14-day quarantine after travel, which I'll go over, but rapid tests have a very high, I think it's like 60% false positives. So rapid testing does not work. We're not going to allow rapid testing. So if you are traveling, we're going to go through the travel things. I'll get to that in just a moment. And rapid tests, I don't think you can request a rapid test anyway. Rapid tests are for people that have surgery or need to have an emergency surgery. Deb Landry, explain once again where the check will be at Village West 101. So the checkpoints will be at the front door near Beth's office. So you'll come in the door, it'll be, or we can even put a station just outside the door. If that's what you guys are more comfortable with, we can talk about that in an admin meeting. And there will be one downstairs just as you walk in the door before you get to Sean and Drew's doors in the downstairs. Tim Catalano, crew leaders have to take temps every day, even after everyone does it themselves. Yes, please. We have implemented that for right now. You know, if down the road we're finding that, you know, everybody that's coming in does not have a temperature, then we may pull back a little bit on that. But to start, we want to make sure that when people arrive that they don't have temperatures. It's just a double check to make sure that everyone on the job site is safe. It's for your safety and it's for everyone else's safety. Messages, chat. Yep, Sarah brings up a very good point. We have in place policies that we've had in place since April, May, when COVID first came out, and we were given guidance by the federal government and state governments that anybody riding in a vehicle with more than one person must be wearing masks. I have heard reports that people are not wearing their masks in vehicles when there's been more than one person in there. Even if your windows are open, you must have your mask on at all times. If there's somebody else in the vehicle with you, please. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for bringing that up. Sean wrote, are we logging the results for people whose temperature is taken? No. Um, Not at this time. And the reason being is HIPAA. Where would you keep that paperwork? How would we know that it wasn't going to be accessed by somebody on a crew if you're not around? So at this time, no, just because of confidentiality reasons. It's just an honor. So we trust you guys. We trust that you're going to do what we ask you to do. Okay, so that was that. So updated New Hampshire travel regulations for employers in New England states are, again, I'm going to go over them one more time. New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So these new regulations. Employees who travel outside of the New England area must quarantine for 14 days prior to returning to work, no exceptions. You cannot go and have a COVID test right when you return. And the philosophy behind that through the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services is that if you contract COVID on that last day, it could take 2 to 14 days to develop symptoms. So even if you have a COVID test and that test result comes back in 5 days, in 7 days, you could be showing symptoms and that test really was negated completely because you weren't far enough into COVID to actually be tested positive for it. Now, I have received multiple questions and scenarios and what ifs about this particular rule. We're going to contact our employment lawyer and his law firm to get additional guidance on this to find out how mandatory this really is. The Department of Health and Human Services did put out clarification on August 27th that does say that employees must quarantine for 14 days prior to returning to work if you travel outside of New England. But we want to find out if there are any genuine exceptions to this rule. So please be aware that we are looking into it to try to alleviate some of the headache that this could cause for people. Until the quarantine regulations for employers have been lifted, BLC does reserve the right to deny time off requests for travel outside of the designated New England states. The exceptions are family emergencies that may include funerals, weddings, some other things. Maybe you have a doctor's visit somewhere because you need to see a specialist. You might have to go somewhere for medication or food or emergency travel. Like let's say that we're in a flood zone and a hurricane comes through and floods out all of New Hampshire and we've got to leave the entire area and we have family somewhere that we can go be with until we can return home. That would be a situation where there would be an exception. But for right now, until we reach out to our attorney and get some more answers, we have the right to deny time off outside of New England. So I'll go back to answering more questions. Okay. So that was it for questions. So I have a couple more slides that are unrelated to this. So Hayden has asked to come on, and I'm guessing it is related to this. So I will unmute Hayden. Hayden, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can. So go ahead.
Thank you, Angie, for the summary. You know, folks, this isn't something that Angie dreamt up. These are state regs. And for those of you that know me, you know how much I love following regulations. You can't belittle what the importance of this is, not only to yourself, but also to your family and your coworkers. You know, this COVID thing has not left the building yet, and it's going to be, you know, another year, I bet you, before we start getting into the point where we may have vaccinations available. I was listening to NPR show the other day, and they were talking about the protocol for vaccinations and who would get priority over those, over others. And us middle-aged folks are on the bottom of the list. We're DFL. We're dead last, and on the list of being able to being able to have a vaccination available to us that we can take. So I just want to share the importance of this, because I'm not sure how many of you really track much of this, but I'm kind of an NPR freak and I listen to it all the time. And that's all it is. NPR is a great newsworthy agency that kind of tells it like it is and doesn't sugarcoat it or float it up or make it look horrible or whatever. But point being is that this thing's here to stay for a bit. This is not going anywhere. And, you know, when you go around and you start watching people, New Hampshire is very, very fortunate right now to have, you know, hardly, I think there's 14 cases that are in hospital. If that, I think it actually may even be 7. But yet we've infected over 7,000 people. So I encourage you to really follow this and take seriously all the rules and regs that we've all been talked about and told, you know, for your own safety. It's just, I can't stress it enough. You know, we have some new people on, and I witnessed a handshake the other day, especially right after I actually fist pumped the person. But you guys have got to take this seriously. You've got to really think about this, and it's a change of your behavior. I get it. And but we don't want anything to start happening here. And so I guess I've rambled enough, but
No, that's good, Hayden.
please take it seriously.
I do appreciate you backing me up on this, and it isn't anything that I've come up with. I've worked with our employment attorney about this and reached out to other HR professionals. We're all trying to keep each other informed. These change once a week, the regulations change. So, you know, keeping up on it has been tough, but we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're protecting you and your families. There's nothing I want, you know, I would never want someone to come in who has it and you're exposed to that and then you're bringing it home to your kids. Like we just don't want that here at all.